Okay. Well, welcome everyone to our Transition at All Ages workshop. Please let me know if you can't hear me at any time, or if you can't see the presentation or anything like that. So my name is Julia Chalker. I'm the District Transition Coordinator, and this is one of my favorite programs to do because I think it's so important. I know that one of our biggest struggles is getting parents of students that are all ages to come, because a lot of times they hear the word transition and they think it's for later. So I'm really glad that y'all are here. All right. Okay, I love this visual. Tell me if anyone has ever felt this way. Being a special needs parent is like flying one of these for the first time without a manual, in the dark, while all the passengers are telling you what you're doing wrong. Has anyone ever felt that way? So when we talk about transition in general, what does the word transition mean? It means, change, movement, passage from one thing to another. And it can be, changing from one position, a state, a stage of life. It could be from going to one subject to another concept. It just means change, right? And transition can be really difficult for anyone. But most people can learn to adapt to transitions, and we also know that it gets easier as we get older with maturity and time. But those with special needs often have a harder time with transition, and they often need extra time and different ways to support them in managing these transitions. So we're going to talk about transition as part of the IEP. So y'all are probably aware that there is legislation, IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and that is the legal reason why we address transition as part of the IEP. We have to have that in place by age 14. It has to be in place before the ARD meeting where a student is 14. So it has to be in place before that birthday. So it might be almost a whole year before 14, depending on when a birthday falls. And that's one of I'm kind of a Texas basher as far as special needs, but that's one thing that we do right in Texas is we address transition at 14. The federal age is actually 16. So that's when we start looking at it as part of the IEP. And for that, we have to write post-secondary goals, and those are goals for after graduation, post-secondary, in the areas of education and training, employment, and independent living. And we have to also show that we are looking at what services we need to help a student to reach those post-secondary goals. And that'll be through different activities and services and suggestions. And this may happen when your child is in 8th grade for sure, but sometimes that will occur when a student is in 7th grade or even 6th grade, depending on a student's age. We actually did our first transition plan in the district for a 6th grader, for a student that had significant medical needs. So we actually did our first transition plan for a 6th grader this year. But that is transition as far as why we do it legally. But transition is a lifelong process, and we hate it when people wait to think about transition until age 14. We say that it's never too early to think about transition, and it's also never too late. But we want to think about it as early as possible and through every stage of life. And I'll talk a lot about this later, but we want parents to be thinking with the end in mind. What is it that you envisioned for your child as an adult? And be thinking of that in every plan that we make for your child. And that's not just a special ed thing. I've got 4 typical children, or they're now adults. And I maybe because I'm a transition specialist, but you have to really think about, what do they need to transition from elementary to middle to right now we're navigating the whole young adult, moving out, navigating careers, all those things. So it's something that everyone needs to think about all throughout life and every stage. So this is one of the biggest topics I talk about, the difference between entitlement and eligibility. So when your child is in school, when they receive services through schools, that is under IDEA, like I said, and your student is entitled to legally that no matter what their disability is, no matter what your income is, that they receive the free and appropriate education that they need to navigate their education. So you are entitled to that, and it is your right, and it is something that we have to provide. So eligibility, once you graduate or exit the school system, you're no longer in a system of entitlement. You are in a system of eligibility, and that's a huge difference. Let's talk a little bit more about that. So in the educational system, like I said, under IDEA, if you are identified with a disability that requires specialized instruction, now we know that some disabilities may not require that, and a student may be receiving services through 504, but this is for someone in special education, that there's not any waiting lists. You don't have to wait for services. We need to provide what is needed at that time. And we have to create services that are based on a student's needs. You are entitled to that. And the school district is the provider, right? But in the adult service system, or the eligibility services, someone with a disability has to meet eligibility criteria. So that might be different than it is in the public school system. And adult agencies have different requirements and criteria, and that could be whether it be college disability services or an agency for intellectual and developmental disabilities. They have different requirements for eligibility, and they might have waiting lists. We'll talk about this more, but Texas has very long waiting lists for some of our community-based services. And then sometimes there's services that you may have received in high school that don't even exist in the adult world, so you would not be entitled to those. And a lot of times you have to seek out the providers for the different services. So it's very, very different model. And it's really important for parents to understand the big difference so that you can get ready to go from entitlement services to eligibility services. I call that the services cliff, and we don't want you to fall off that cliff. We want to help you parachute slowly. I just made that up. That was kind of corny, but we want to help you to get to the next stage in life, the adult service system, without it being an abrupt halt of services. We want to help you transition to that. So I hope that all makes sense, but it's a big difference. Okay, so we're going to talk now about the Medicaid waiver program. So if you've heard of those, they can be very confusing. There's a lot of different programs, and they call them Medicaid waiver programs because they waive the income requirements for Medicaid. It's kind of confusing because it's not really having to do with Medicaid necessarily, but they waive those income requirements. So there's a broad range of services that these waiver programs can provide, and they call them community-based services because the goal of these services is to provide services in the community versus like in a state-supported school or something more restrictive. So they're called community-based services. And each one of the waiver programs has different rules and funding amounts and lots of confusing details. But they can offer a variety of things from respite care, different therapies, recreational support in the community, home modification, day habs, that kind of thing. So these services can be great. It sounds wonderful, doesn't it? But the bad news is, and you may know this already, is that there's a lot more demand for these services and supports than there are slots. So that's why we have what they call interest lists or waiting lists. And it's very unfortunate, but Texas has the second or the 49th longest interest lists in the nation. Some of them are over 15 years long. And I would say closer to 18. I had an ARD recently with a young man that has Down syndrome. So he left the hospital on these lists, and he just turned 18 and he just reached the top of the list. So that just tells you that 18 is probably pretty accurate. There are different lists for different needs. So sometimes individuals that have some significant medical issues might come up early on a program called the Medically Dependent Children's Program. But generally the lists are very long. And all this goes back to our Texas legislature. They, every other year when they go to do the budget, they can decide on how many slots they're going to fund on these interest lists. And Texas is notorious for not funding a lot, and it's not a good thing. And I'll talk a little bit more about advocacy and what you might be able to do to help with that. So the big thing on that is, should you sign up for these interest lists? Absolutely. So whether you think you're going to use them or not, it just takes 2 phone calls, and you can always say no later when you come up on the lists. But if you have any doubt, I would definitely sign up for these, and I will give you information about how to do that. We have a lot of parents that need assistance to do this because they might have moved to Texas, and every state is separate. But we also have a lot of parents that get to middle school or high school and they haven't signed up, and that have lived here. And that's always a shame for me. We want you to be on these lists as soon as possible. And hopefully you won't need these services, but we want to cover our bases and make sure that you are on those lists in case you do. So getting on the list. So basically to do it, you're just going to need the script I'm going to give you, and your child's social security number, diagnosis, and then like personal information about address and things like that. And I actually was told last time, you don't even have to give your social security number if you don't want to. But I would always recommend when you call that you get the name of who you talk to and keep a good record of that. They're going to send you a letter of confirmation, and make sure that you respond to all the communications they send out. They're going to confirm that you want to remain on these lists on an annual basis. Some of the lists do it by phone. Some of them will send a letter. So if you ever move, like counties or even houses within your county, please call and update that information. Very, very important. We've had students that have been on lists for years and did not do that and lost their place. And like I said, each state has their own lists. And by the way, if you ever decide you're going to move somewhere, I have sources that you can check to see what the services are like in other states and how long their lists are, how much money they spend per individual on services, that kind of thing. But this is the dismal state, unfortunately, in Texas. Now, we have great services, and they're very comprehensive once you get them. Okay. So we're going to talk about IDD agencies and local authorities. So IDD, if you don't know, stands for Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. And these agencies are the agencies that they are like the ones that help manage these long interest lists and provide services for individuals who qualify, and they do it by county. So for our district, that's going to be LifePath Systems for Collin County and Denton County MHMR for Denton County. And so what you need to do is you call and ask them to put you on the interest list. And I'm going to give you a script, like I said, that talks all about what to say, but also tell them that you would like to be assigned a service coordinator. So you're going to be on these lists a long time, but sometimes they are able to help with some other services in the meanwhile through what they call general revenue funds. We've had families that were able to get help with diapers, help with respite care, maybe even some day programs like during summer and that type of thing. But it just depends on what funds are available at the time. But you have to call and talk to a intake person at those agencies to find out if they can help you with those things. But if you don't ask, you won't get it. So you can also, once you get hooked up with a case service coordinator, you can also invite them to ARD meetings with your consent. Okay, so those are our IDD agencies. So be sure that you contact them. I will send y'all the flyer that has the script on it. I thought I had it on there. Some other things to think about when thinking about transition that I often have questions about is Social Security. So there's a couple types of benefits that some of our students will qualify if they meet their definition of disabled. And one of those is supplemental security income. That's SSI. And SSI is a monthly amount that some individuals will qualify. It's being raised to about 8 something a month in January. But the big thing about SSI and SSDI is you have income and assets that are considered. So generally, our students won't qualify for SSI until they turn 18 because they will consider the parent's income. That's not always the case. We do have some families that get SSI, but they do look at income and assets. So a lot of our students don't until 18. There also is SSDI. So if a parent receives Social Security, retirement, or disability benefits, their child may qualify for SSDI. And that even is after a parent passes away. So my brother has autism. He's 53 and he still receives SSDI. So, and all of this can be very confusing. And let me just say that I'm touching on a lot of different topics today. And please know that I'm not the expert on any of these, but I can generally send you in the right direction. And a lot of times I can hook you up with a parent that has navigated the system that is often a really good expert in helping other parents. So that's SSI and something you might want to investigate, especially when your child turns 18. Okay, so long-term planning is something else that you might need to be thinking about now, or I would definitely think about now. Even if your child is younger, you may want to think about some things as far as like a special needs trust and having a will. So in Texas, if you do not have a will, you have a will, because automatically if something were to happen to you, your assets would be given to your beneficiary. And if you don't have a beneficiary, it would automatically be your spouse or your children. So if something were to happen to you, your child would get the money that goes. I think the doorbell's ringing here. It's distracting me. I can't get it right now. Anyway, so what they recommend is that you make sure that your child with special needs not be on your will as a beneficiary, because if anything were to happen, that money would go to them, and that could actually prevent them from receiving benefits in the future. So something to think about on your wills and your insurance beneficiaries. And the same thing for inheriting money. And then a special needs trust is a way to get around that, though. So a special needs trust is a special trust that you can set up through an attorney where your child could get money and save money that would not be considered in their assets. So it would not keep them it would not keep them from getting benefits or impact their access to benefits. So a special needs trust is something that you can set up very young, but you don't have to put any money in it. You don't have to fund it. So that's something to think about. There's also some other ways to put money aside now too, through an ABLE account. And I have information about that also. But just some things to kind of be thinking about from early on about long-term planning. Okay, so turning 18. A lot of people don't realize that no matter what a student's capabilities are or what their disability is, when they turn 18, they become an adult. And so all educational rights will transfer to them at 18 unless a parent gets guardianship. And so they became the decision maker in an ARD meeting, and they can consent or refuse services. And of course, they can invite their parent to participate. But a lot of people don't understand that no matter what a student's capability is, that those rights will transfer. And it's the same for the adult world. They are able to make legal decisions on their own at 18. Now, am I saying that all students' parents should get guardianship? Absolutely not. So the court looks at, an individual being able to make decisions on their own at the age of majority. But courts also want to preserve as many rights for an individual as possible. So there's guardianship, and that's something that can be looked at. And what I always recommend is that you look at all these different areas. And I actually have some questionnaires and things that might help you look at Is my son or daughter able to make decisions regarding medical or their finances? Or are they safe in the community? Would they be able to understand stranger danger? And are they able to make decisions? Are they able to make decisions about their education? Are they able to communicate their needs? So there's all these different things that you can consider about guardianship, but it's definitely something to be taken seriously. And the court looks at it very seriously too. But there's some alternatives to guardianship that we always want to consider first. And some of those are supported decision-making. And we have a whole seminar on this every year on all of these things. You might be able to do power of attorney. The big thing about power of attorney and supported decision-making is that the individual would need to understand what that means. So I just wanted to kind of give you a heads up about guardianship and alternatives, and know that we have a whole workshop on this. But just keeping in mind that's something that if you want to get something in place, guardianship usually takes about 6 months before they turn 18. Okay, so what are different ways that you can support the transition process at all ages? So I kind of touched on this earlier, but I love this quote from Stephen Covey. To begin with the end in mind means to start with a clear understanding of your destination. It means to know where you're going so that you better understand where you are now, and so that the steps you take are always in the right direction. I just love that. So when we say that, you know, I want you to create a vision for your child, whether your child is 5 years old or 18. So what is it that you envision and dream of for your child 5 years from now, 10 years from now, as an adult? But just as importantly, what is it, what you don't want for your child? And that might be, I don't want him to be sitting on the couch. That's the worst thing that could ever happen, is to have a student that ends up sitting on the couch and not participating in the community or working or volunteering. So what is it that you don't want their life to look like? And then what's it going to take to get from here to what that vision is? And you can change this vision over time. I always say aim high, but we need to create a vision that where everyone on the team is working toward. To show you, hold on. I wanted to show you a tool that we have. Charting the Life course is a great website that has a lot of person-centered planning tools. And this one is, let's see. Why is it not coming up? Let's see. Not sure why that's not. Y'all still see the same thing, right? The PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my link is not working, but the link will work on the presentation I send out. But the Charting the Life course visual is great because it has, what do you envision for your child for the future as far as education, for employment? Where would you like them to live? It might be, what do you envision for them spiritually? What do you envision for them family-wise, location? So it's a good way of brainstorming the different things that would be part of your vision for the future. And it's a great thing to look at to start planning on what goals you might be wanting to work on. So, for example, if you envision that your child will be employed, there are things that you can be working on from day one about that. You know, being more independent, doing chores at home, being able to talk to people in the community, being able to ask what they need, ask for what they need. But it's a really good tool, and I'll make sure that you get the PowerPoint that has that slide. But create that vision. Okay. And like I said, be sure to have high expectations, and we always want to presume that our sons and daughters are going to be competent. And, you know, we sometimes have to adjust our goals, but we want to really aim high, and we want to focus on what their strengths and interests are. And we want to learn about all the different options. And that's what our job is. Okay. So You might think that you want your child to be employed, but do you know what the difference is between competitive employment and supported employment? Unfortunately, there's not employment where you would receive support for the rest of your life. Some of our students may do supported employment, but some of our students, the parents are thrilled if they're able to volunteer and contribute in that way and live a well-rounded life by doing other things. So, that's for employment. You may be interested in your child attending post-secondary school. So what are the needs or what are the requirements to attend a regular college? What are the options for inclusive college programs? That's something that we're hearing more about in Texas. Or what are day programs and what are their requirements? So just, as early as possible, learn about all the different options so that you know what you are working towards. Okay, the importance of building independence. I don't know why this link is not working. Oh, there we go. Okay, short video I want y'all to watch.
I can't hear it.
Oh, okay. So is everyone not hearing?
Yeah, you may have to go into like the settings and change the audio output for the call. And some times you have to set that up before you make the call. So we'll see if you can go into the little gear, maybe.
Yeah. So I'm in there now.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll say like sharing audio. Sometimes you have to set it up. Just click on the button before you dial into it. I'm not sure.
Let's see. Thanks for your patience, everyone.
It's all good.
Okay, I'm going to try this one more time, but if not, we'll do it on the link. Let's see. Tell me what this is like. Is that any better?
No, I still can't hear it.
Yeah. Well, I will send this to you guys. I'm so sorry. I swear I'm not techie, and every time I do virtual, there's something that doesn't work right. But basically, and I want y'all to watch this video when I send this out, okay? It's just a short video where she talks about you got to start working on independence now and how important that is to do that now. Let's see, and to build on those things. All right. Back. Stop presenting for 1 second. There's that. Oh my goodness. Thank you, guys. Okay. Okay. In talking more about this, encouraging gradual independence, just be as creative as you can. And we do some really good workshops here at the Family Resource Center about encouraging independence. And they do such a great job of giving ideas of things that I would never have thought of, that they can take on these different skills as they get older. And, like using their alarm clock, following a calendar, utilizing technology. I mean, my gosh, we have so many different things that we can do with reminders and apps and things like that. Leisure skills. I'm really big about encouraging students to try new things out of the community. We actually have a really good comprehensive list of recreation and leisure activities for special needs that I share, that has everything from sensory friendly activities to athletic leagues, dance, fine arts, acting, everything. And obviously, if you don't need to do special needs activities. So if your child is able to participate in inclusive activities, that is awesome. But just expanding those options and encouraging them to try new things and new ways to use that unstructured time. Because as we know, all of our kids spend too much time on devices, and we want them to have other ways to use their unstructured time. Working on a new skill. One way to work on that is to do what we call backwards chaining, where you plan backwards. So you might be teaching them how to tie their shoes. And what you might do is you would do all the steps together, and except the very last step, and let them do the last step. And then once they've mastered that, we're going to go back one more step and let them do the last two steps. So they're backwards chaining. And so you're getting less involved in the skill, and they're getting more involved as time goes on. And then this is so hard as a parent for me, but letting your children take risks and fail, let them fail so that they learn how to do things. And that's really hard for me. But every time I've done it, I've been glad I've done it. So letting them, fall down and fail and try again. Participating in the community, kind of along with the recreation and leisure, but encouraging them to go on errands with you, to interact with people in the community, to order their own food, to, speak to the cashier, any of those things. This is a link to that actual list that I keep. And I'll have the link on the PowerPoint that I send home. An easy way to actually reach it is tinyurl.com/special needs recreation. So also volunteering. I have lists of different places that you can volunteer in the area. And volunteering as a family is a great way to work on skills, and a great way to work on employment skills, communication skills, social skills. And there's lots of need in the community for volunteers. And then a big thing also that I encourage is always working on that safety aspect, the community safety skills, the stranger danger and that type of thing. And I wanted to mention there's a program called Take Me Home. If you haven't heard of it before, it's a program that is run through different police departments. It started in Florida years ago, unfortunately, because an individual with autism was killed because of a police officer misunderstanding some behavior, and they thought the individual was dangerous, and something very unfortunate happened. And that's how the Take Me Home program started. What Take Me Home is it's a database that individual police departments keep, and you fill out a Take Me Home form, and you give a picture, and it provides information about your child's interests, preferences, maybe things that might trigger them or upset them, things that may calm them down. And they ask you to update it regularly. But the story I always tell about the Take Me Home program is I had a student in previous district years ago that he's very big, and he would get angry, and mom was scared and had to call the police, and the Plano police were able to access him in the Take Me Home system. And by the time they got to the house, they knew that his special interest was trains, and they were able to talk to him about trains and calm him down and diffuse a potentially very serious situation. So it's especially good for our students that might elope or leave the house. and get lost, but also with behaviors and that kind of thing. So I highly recommend that you consider doing Take Me Home. Prosper has it, the city of Prosper, not the Prosper School District Police, but the city of Prosper. They have it in Salina, they have it in McKinney, and they have it in Frisco. So all the districts that feed into Prosper ISD have it now. I think there's some pockets of the district like the Aubrey area that don't, but I also encourage, like if you have your student lives in 2 different homes, that you do the Take Me Home for both cities, because they don't communicate with each other, believe it or not. So, but the Take Me Home program is a really good program. We have a link to all the Take Me Homes on our resource center website too. So think about doing that. And then teaching self-advocacy. Now, that's a big word. How am I going to teach my 5-year-old self-advocacy? And that can start with just allowing them to make choices. That might be, choosing what they wear to school that day, or what their snack in their lunchbox is going to be, but giving them the power to be able to make different choices. And sometimes that's difficult for some of our students. Also working on decision-making and problem solving from a very early age at whatever level that they're able to do that. And then I'm big about teaching about what your disability is. And that for some of our students who may not understand that, it might just be talking about what your strengths are and what your challenges are. What are some things that are difficult for you? And what can we do? What kind of assistance is helpful to you? I definitely think as our students get older that it's very good to know what your disability is, and know that disability is kind of a negative word, but sometimes we have words that we use to access the supports we need. And the big emphasis should always be on what a student's strengths are, because we all have strengths and we all have challenges. And then another thing is just fostering skills of self-determination, where everyone has a right to direct their own life in as many ways as they're able to. So, and that goes back to the choice making, but also, as part of the transition process, we are always looking at what a student wants and what a student prefers. Being very person-centered. Okay, and then I talked a little bit about this earlier, but thinking about, what are the long-term plans for education and employment? You can work on career awareness from a young age just by talking about what your interests are, and, practicing things that you're going to need for employment. The being able to share a conversation without monopolizing it, or being able to listen well, or being able to have appropriate social skills. And then learning about the different types of employment options, whether it's going to work with you or trying some different volunteer experiences, doing some exploration online. And a lot of our students will have the opportunity to do a lot of that type of thing when they get to high school. And then for y'all to learn about, like I said earlier, the different options for post-secondary education, everywhere from a day habilitation program to regular college or an inclusive college program, and what supports are available at each level. There is no special education in a regular college, but there are accommodations, and we can help you look at all that as you get closer to that age. Okay, this is a big one. I think this is probably one of the most important things you can do, and that's to reach out and network with other parents. Other parents are the experts that have already, they know so much more than the professionals do, because y'all have navigated it and lived with it. Now, I feel like I know a lot of the family stuff because I'm a sibling and I'll be my brother's guardian, but I have not been a parent or guardian yet. So reach out and network with parents. We actually have a wonderful mentor program here at the Family Resource Center. You might be great to mentor someone that hasn't experienced what you have, or you might be good to get a mentor of perhaps a parent of a child that's older than yours that's navigated some of the things. So, but it's really important to go to the experts, other parents. We also have disability-specific organizations that you can think about joining. There's Down Syndrome Guild, National Autism Association of North Texas. There's a lot of different things. And then we have different support groups here at the Family Resource Center too. We also have our own social media, the Prosper ISD Special Education, and our Twitter. But some of the other special education Facebook pages are set up more for parents to interact with each other. Ours is more for awareness and to inform you about upcoming events and trainings and things like that. But I learned so much. I'm on a lot of these different Facebook pages, and I learned so much from these. The thing to remember about the social media, though, is remember people are going to post things that may not be accurate. So just keep that in mind. Usually other parents are pretty good about correcting anything that goes out there, but especially when you're talking about waiver programs and SSI, those that have navigated those things already have so many good things that they post about. And people will put questions out there about some minute detail and get the answer right away. So I really recommend that you check out those social media sites. And then advocate. You've kind of heard me talk a little bit about the dismal state of Texas and as far as disabilities. Nothing is going to change with that until the legislators hear from parents. A lot of times they don't know how bad it is. And I would love to host some events where we could come up to the Family Resource Center and write letters. You know, they have form letters that you can fill out, but what these legislators want to hear is they want to hear personal stories. They want to hear about what number you are on these interest lists and what, you are not able to do, and that you don't have any respite care, and the things that you aren't able to access and how that impacts your family. It's really important that they hear from you, whether it is in writing, email, phone call, or visiting their office. And it's a really important time to do this right now because the next legislative session starts in January. I'm a board member of ARC, and we're doing a lot of advocacy education right now. And so keep an eye on the Facebook page because we're going to be hosting a virtual workshop about this. But if you'll look at the picture in the right-hand corner, that is one of our students featured in the last legislative session. The medically fragile contingent of parents, they did it. They went to Austin and they set up all their equipment and showed these legislators what it's like to live with a medically fragile child and what their needs were and what supports they needed. And they got changes made. But they made themselves known up there. So it's really important for things to change, but it's not going to happen, like I said, unless they hear from y'all. So enough on my soapbox about that. Another important part of transition and, working towards the future for your child is taking care of yourself. A lot of times we are the last ones that we think of as parents. But it's really important. You can't take care of someone else if you don't take care of yourself. And I'm talking about, sleep, water, nutrition. Are you moving? Are you getting exercise? Do you go to the doctor? I mean, sometimes we're the last person that we think of sometimes. Do you have time? Do you ever do anything for yourself or go on date nights or that kind of thing? And it's okay if you need to seek professional help every now and then. Absolutely okay. Because like I said, you can't take care of someone else if you don't take care of yourself. And find your tribe. I mean, these parents that meet here at the Family Resource Center and that have gotten to know each other through some of the support groups, you get each other. You know what the day-to-day struggles and celebrations are like nobody else would. So please look for your tribe and help us if there's any way that we can help you to do that. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time just talking about when you hear about transition, a lot of people will think about, the transition from early childhood to going to the school district, to elementary to middle and high school. So those are transitions that we often need some extra assistance in planning. So daily transitions often are very hard for a lot of our sons and daughters. And just know that sometimes they're difficult, and plan for them and think ahead as much as you can and give warnings before changes. A lot of our students may have that as part of their accommodations. I think countdown visual timers are great for some of our students. And anything that we can do to have consistency between home and school. If you're using something to help with transitions at home, let your teacher know. Or if your teacher's using something, you can implement that same type of thing at home. And then use pictures and written schedules and checklists. In case you didn't know, our Family Resource Center has all kinds of binders of information about every topic in the world, but a lot of those include checklists and visuals that you can just take, that we have lots of copies of. So use us as a resource for some of these things. So, but using a written schedule or checklist is really helpful with transitions. As far as major schedule changes, if your child is going to have like an early dismissal day or a field trip coming up or a teacher's going to be out, those are things that can, you know, really make things difficult for some of our guys and gals. So give them a warning in advance. And like I said, that can be an accommodation. And, you know, ask your teacher to let you know when those things are happening. Hopefully they are doing that so that you can talk about that and reinforce that at home. So when you're transitioning at school from year to year, know that, you know, especially when you're changing buildings or levels, that it takes a lot of planning and a lot of feedback. And some different suggestions might be to go visit the school. A lot of times they have that built in and they do that in the spring. They might have a time to go visit the new campus, but and walk your schedule. You can do things like even just driving by the new school regularly, like over the summer. And then provide as much information as you can to the new school. There's some really neat one-page profiles and templates that you can use, that little tidbits about your child, these preferences and things that might calm them, things that might upset them. So any information you can give to help with those transitions. So a couple of those different transitions. First one is preschool to elementary. Obviously, that's a big change because we're going to a longer day. There's no more nap time. The classes are going to be larger. You're going to have more unstructured time. And you're going to have more free time that is not as structured, like lunch and recess, PE, and that type of thing. And a lot of those things have a lot more stimulation, which is hard on some of our students. So, and be thinking, what skills am I going to need when I go to the next level after that? So we go from elementary to middle school. You're going to need a lot more independence. I think I hear more that this is the transition that a lot of parents really worry about, maybe even more than middle to high school. So you're going to have all that independence that you're going to be having introduced, and they're going to be changing classes every 45 minutes. They may never have done that. They're going to be having to deal with more teachers, different teachers throughout the day, perhaps. And it's all about, you know, fitting in and socializing in middle school. And then, of course, we've got all those wonderful things like dealing with lockers. That's a huge deal for some reason. Bullying and those hormones and puberty. So, and what we always recommend is that you start with the least amount of support necessary in moving from one place to another and having somebody shadow your child. And then if we need to put more support in there, we can. But it's easier to move in that direction than to have too much support and having to back it off. And of course, all these things are going to vary by child. So middle school to high school. All those points we talked about for middle school apply. But in middle school to high school, you need to be aware of what your different requirements for graduation are, and your transition specialist will help with that. Then you're going to also be thinking about all those different options for electives. And then you'll have that transition plan. And what I love about the transition plans that we do is it shows that we are a team working on these things. So it's not just for the parents in the school to do, but we're also looking at adult agencies and all of us working together to make this plan work. And then probably the scariest really transition is high school to adult life, whether that is for a student that is going to meet their credit requirements and be done at the end of their senior year, or whether they might stay for transition services. So parents are a huge part of this process. And, you know, you're the one that's going to be there when the school's obligation is finished. So again, we want to be realistic, but we don't want to give up on learning. We always want to keep learning. And I always recommend that we focus on strengths, but we also want to really look at what a student's interests and preferences are. And we want to make sure that before you leave us, that we have you hooked up with the appropriate outside agencies. For some of our students that might be employed or go to college, that might be Texas Workforce Solutions. That's our vocational rehabilitation agency, and you'll hear a lot more about that as your child gets older. But it might be our outside agencies like LifePath or Denton County MHMR, and there's some other different agencies that can assist. But we want to make sure that all that is in place before you leave us. And we want to make sure all those connections are made before then. So what we want you to do is we want you to think about how full your child's day is right now. So they have school and they have outdoor activities and they do different things on the weekend. And they might have a social component to their life. They might have therapies, that kind of thing. And we want you to think about what the calendar will look like when services are over. And what connections can we make now to ensure that there's a smooth transition to adult life. So we want to help you be able to fill that day up. A lot of our students that will work after they graduate may not work full time. So what do we want to fill the rest of their day with? What educational opportunities, what recreational opportunities, that kind of thing. And so what connections do we need to make for those? And we want our students to have opportunities to experience new things while they're still in school, so that they, are able to see what is a good fit for them. And a lot of our students that are in transition services, if they are going to be transitioning to a day rehabilitation program after they leave us, we might be helping them do that while they're with us. They might come to transition for a couple days a week. And then before they graduate, before they leave us, we might be helping them with the transition to a day program in the community, because we want their last day with us to look like the rest of their lives. I hope that makes sense. The biggest thing I want y'all to hear is that it's all about preparing. And I use this visual because that's what I think of as after high school or after leaving transition services, that there's a huge cliff going from those services that you're entitled to these services that you have to be eligible for. And we want to make sure that that is not just something that somebody falls off of, that you gently transition to those different environments. A couple things in case you've probably heard about our Family Resource Center. It's on First Street, and if you don't know, it used to be the Mayhard Egg Farm offices. If you've ever heard of that, we still have people that come to our door asking for eggs. And it's open Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 10 to 2. And then when we have parent workshops in person, which we generally do, it's open at that time also. And then if you ever need to make an appointment when those times don't work, you can definitely reach out to us about that. But we have a lending library, parent workshops, all the support groups. We're just so blessed to have a wonderful Family Resource Center that we do. And then our workshops, like the one that you're at now, keep an eye on ones that you might be interested in. And like I said, we post the recordings, and we have recorded workshops from the last several years on our website. So you can access those at any time. And if you ever have suggestions on workshops that you would like to see, let us know. We'll actually, since you attended tonight, you will get a survey at the end of the year asking for what you would like to see next year, or what was the most valuable for you. The website, check it regularly. We are constantly putting things on there. Let me go to the website really quick and show you. So this is our Family Resource Center website, and you can see that there is information about our next workshop about picky eaters, and then a virtual tour. You can see all the different support groups we have. Of course, my favorite is the transition services. And on here, you'll see the transition related workshops, but you'll also see everything about the things I've talked about tonight. I'm going to show you the flyer about getting on the interest lists. Let's see. So this just kind of shows you the steps that you have to take. It will tell you exactly what you need to say. You're going to call this and say, I want to be placed on the Medicaid waiver program interest list. And then you call this other Health and Human Services and say that you want to be on these other interest lists. So it gives you step-by-step suggestions on what to say. And then we have information about getting organized. We have a great workshop we do every year in January about all the crazy amount of paperwork and information that you have to keep organized for special needs. And we love to help with that. Guardianship and other alternatives. We have all kinds of videos. If you are interested in inclusive college programs, this is a video that talks to a panel of college students in those programs and their parents. So there's just all kinds of things on here that you can access and that I hope will be helpful to you. But check it regularly. And a lot of the visuals that are available here are also on the website where you could actually print them yourself. Our social media, again, it's Prosper ISD Special Education, and Twitter is @Prosper_special. And this is my contact information. I'm the transition coordinator. We have a transition specialist at each of our high schools. Juliana Murray is at Rock Hill and Drew Webb is at Prosper High School. Your son or daughter does not need to be in high school for our assistance, so reach out to any of us if there's anything we can help you with. And then our fabulous family support specialists, Colleen Kugler and Shannon Tibbetts, are willing to help with anything also. They all know about transition also. And just so you know, we get together regularly and we go and check out programs that are in the community, rehabilitation programs and things, so that we always know what is being offered in the community so that we can share that with y'all. And if there's ever a program or something that you would like more information about that we could go visit, we would be happy to do that and share the information. And I know that's a lot of information. So now I'm going to open it up to questions. I know that's a lot. Does anybody have any questions about transition or anything related to what I've talked about this evening? No? Everybody's quiet. Okay. Well, I really, really appreciate y'all attending. And please know that we are here to help in any way. I'm going to send out the, oh, we've got a raised hand. Miss Lewis.
Well, yeah, because we were getting ready to get off the phone. Julia, I just want to say thank you. I have no questions at the moment because you do a great job in answering my questions before I ask them. And I just want to let you know, I met you a couple of years ago. We talked about my son, and you were a joy then, and you're still a joy. You're a resource. You're a blessing. And I just want to thank you, on behalf, I'm sure, of the others on the call and all of the lives that you've touched. Just want to say thank you, dear.
Oh, well, thank you. It's always nice to hear positive things from parents.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay,
Well,
I'll be myself now.
Well, like I said, I've grown up with it. I kind of helped raise my brother because my dad left when I was pretty young. And so I know what life is like for y'all, I think, a lot of times, and how important it is to start early. I mean, my brother he's old enough that there wasn't these long waiting lists that we have now. But if I can encourage y'all to do anything, would y'all be interested in coming up and doing like a make and take where you could come up and we could write letters to legislators and that kind of thing together? Would anybody be interested in doing that?
Yeah, sign me up. I'll try. I mean, it's things like movements like that make change, and so the things that have changed previously, other things, sometimes took events like that to make them possible. So I think
well, what's sad is that we have families that move away from Texas because they can't get the services that their children need. I mean, and the school services are great, but the community-based services. And then we have people that move here all the time that didn't know, and they're just devastated. They didn't know when they before they moved here. And some people have to move because of work. So it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable, especially when we have a governor with a disability. who doesn't give us the time of day about it. And I'm not talking political parties or anything. It's just the issue of supporting everyone with every need. So anyone else have any questions? Okay. Well, thank you guys. We hope we see you at our future trainings. And if you have any suggestions for other trainings, let me know and I will send this out tomorrow. And I'll also send information out about a future advocacy meeting and what y'all can do to help make change in Texas. So, okay.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you. Y'all have a great evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.